Уважаемые дамы и господа, просим вас занять места в зале. Сессия начнется через 10 минут. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The session will start in 10 minutes. Уважаемые дамы и господа, просим вас занять места в зале. Сессия начнется через 5 минут. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The session will start in 5 minutes.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you at the roundtable discussion on the digital transport ecosystem, platform operator, how to win together and not to lose on your own. Dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all who gathered here. My name is Anton Zamkov. I am the Program Development Department, represent the Ministry of Transport of Russia, the Digital Transport and Logistics Director of Association. We have the several representatives here. Let me introduce them to you. It's Pavel Ilyichev, Vice President of GEFCO Group for Strategy and Finance. Mikhail Ivanov, Vice Director General in Operations, Eurosib SPb Transport Company. Artyom Voitko, Strategic Development Director for Freight Village Group, and Gromyko, Head of Department of Strategy and Business Development, OTLK ERA JSC. We're here today to discuss a very serious issue about the connection between real business, physical transportation, and what is called digitalization, and between what is called platforms. So what the platforms and services are about, and what the ecosystem about, what is interaction between real physical platforms and whether they need each other, what data is needed, and how the data can be used, and who will be aggregating the data and processing it, what digital solutions exist for multimodal transportations, and what are the expectations on behalf of the operators, and what investments into the activity are ready for implementation. So this topic is very favorable, and it's a very great one. And I'd like to offer to Evgeny to get the floor. Evgeny Charkin. And we're now talking about the program, the approved program of digitalization within the JSC RZD. And let's begin from there about the system of transportation. What's the digital transformation of our JSC RZD about? What does it mean for operators in general? Thank you, Anton. Dear colleagues, good afternoon. Thank you for the siesta time after dinner, after lunch, for visiting this session. There is a downside to the phrase that you mentioned. Well, it's not the IT, the department that developed the strategy. We counted, and it involved over 300 people who participated in developing of the strategy. So the biggest problem in the developing of the strategy, and it was because the governing board that gave us this task, the task was about meticulous calculation of expenses and to calculate the KPIs of the strategy. And the great work was done jointly by the Department of IT and our clients. And dear colleagues who are present here from JSC RZD, thank you for the work that you have done. It was done at a very high level. Well, as a matter of fact, the principle that we have laid as a foundation into the strategy and the expectations of RZD, even such a large company as RZD cannot do it on its own. And it's only by the building of an ecosystem and a digital platform as an ecosystem. Now, under the conditions of the cost of developed software, which is dropping, and the solutions that are available technologically, so the winner is the one who is able to build a platform or an ecosystem and to involve the market shareholders, and we will have a classical win-win situation. So we have a company who developed the platform, and the company who provided the services, and the users of that service are also winners. I'll give you an example of what a platform is. Let's take Apple, for example. We use an iPhone, and it's a product of Apple company, and they came up with a set of instruments and tools, and they base their services on that. And everybody is a winner. Everybody gains profit from it. So So the company involved software developers and service developers, which provide services to the clients and to the customers. So this platform-based approach and ecosystem-based approach is the basis for our strategy. For its transformation, we have 8 digital platforms which are planned for implementation. I will not list them. You have all of them listed in the slide. And our discussion here will touch upon the most relevant ones. It's multimodal cargo transportation and transportation hubs. And I'd like to extend my thanks to colleagues from the Ministry of Transportation of the Russian Federation and to my colleagues of Transport and Logistics Association. We've done a very comprehensive work in creating this platform for RZD, connected to the plans that the government has to organize business in transport and logistics. If we look at the documentation and the paperwork prepared by the Ministry of Transport, 3 of our platforms are the anchor ones for these projects. It's the platforms of passenger transportation, cargo transportation, and transport and logistics hubs, which will be created based on our platform for the RZD. There is a couple of other key elements which are more complicated, more complex than the integration of technologies. It's the optimization of processes and changes in corporate culture, and cultural aspects are the most complicated within such projects. And the implementation of such programs, we talk about a holding which has over 1 million staff. It is about the culture, the corporate culture. It's about how we build our day-to-day work. It's the changing of processes. And certainly it's the legislative amendments and transformations, which is very necessary for implementation of our strategy. I'd like also to emphasize the fact that the work that has been done, it was closely tied to the resources and to the figures with the JSC RZD. And in this connection, we were considering that reality at the governing board meeting. So we showed the effects that we calculated for RZD. And Mr. Akimov said, dear colleagues, you have done this work, you have done calculations, but you're not only working for RZD, you also work for the country and for the benefit of the clients and for the society. What effect are you going to provide through your transformation to the subject that you have listed? And it's not a trivial objective. And with the help of our Gartner company colleagues, they have a method that we use for calculations, and some of that method is represented in the slide. So we came up with the effect of purely for RZD, it's 153 billion rubles effect towards 2025, and another 400 billions, which is an auxiliary effect byproduct that we are expecting to give to the government and to the citizenship, to the citizens, to the society. So it's a very conservative calculation and approach. I think that the actual figures will be higher. And I'll repeat that in the sidelines of this documentation, we have laid a very specific KPI for the processes. That's about everything I would like to share about this. Evgeny, thank you very much. It would be, you said something very interesting about the cultural aspect of the transformation. So to what extent the company and the holding are ready for such revolutionary changes, and is there any support on behalf of the staff? Is there a positive feedback? Because every digital transformation will lead to the optimization of processes. Well, right off the bat, no company will be fully ready for that transformation for a very obvious reason, because we work as the way we used to work. We don't want to exit the zone of comfort. And the value and the value is that in that transformation that we'll need to exit that zone of comfort. In order to do that, we'll need to find and raise and educate or re-educate those change agents that will be taking care of the promotion of that cultural transformation. We're not talking about the top management level or the staff we're talking about lower levels. Classically, it's a middle management level that will be transmitting the signal from the top management to all the layers of organization beneath. So it will not be about gathering everybody together and talk about digital transformation. So we'll need to really immerse ourselves deeply in the process. So given the scale of our organization, we have over 1,000 employees, and we developed a program how to look for the right people, how to educate and motivate them. Another important aspect, if you allow me, it's the role of the client, because such programs will never be able to be implemented only by the IT department. So the fact that we are promoting it as a defining of the goals and purposes, we share the responsibility on behalf of the client and on behalf of the IT department. We are able and willing to share this responsibility, because the client will will be controlling the processes, and the client knows better. Thank you, Evgeny. Another question about the human resources. We're talking about digital economy a lot, about digital processes, and all of that, in my opinion, is very weak in support by our leading universities. And those who are in the digital now, it's either the telecom representatives who have been re-educated or IT people. So there is no professional re-education. What do you do in that respect? The situation is even more complicated than that, because we need to look at a broader horizon on the one hand. On the other hand, we're looking at the 3 to 5 years in perspective, but from the technological point of view, for example, quantum specifics and technologies, there are no specialists in that area at all. So we'll need to build a chain of universities and higher education schools, which we oftentimes forget about, but it's the source of our future potential. So re-education is a very important aspect, and we are building that experience with a serious educational center, which is located right here, just one floor beneath us, and looking for talented, gifted high schoolers and students. So the specifics that I foresee is in the implementation of programs for the high school students who study at this serious educational center. Using VR simulators and so forth, you can actually look at those things one floor below, and it's the systems that are built by children, by young students, supervised by their teachers. So universities need to come up and need to develop standards of education. We have standards for search standards for talented or gifted youth. We have WorldSkills format, and the average standard level should be very high. So this is the standardization is a cornerstone for re-education of the human resources. Thank you very much. It's a very interesting thing. I'd like to give the floor to Roman Gromyko, who is the head of Department of Strategy and Business Development. Transtelecom is the company that is at the verge of two huge universes. It's transport and telecommunications. It's a company that, on the one hand, is a classical operator of communications, working in all areas. On the other hand, it's a domestic, it's like a family doctor for RZD. It's also an IT driver taking care of construction and maintaining the infrastructure for RZD. And we have a question that is of interest to everyone, and you face this on a daily basis. What's big data in the transport and big data and telecom? How it is used? Is it used, and who does it belong to? What are the prospects of the trans-telecom in this market?
Anton, thank you very much. Yes, indeed. We are one of the very few companies which has two professional celebrations, is the Telecommunication Day and the Railway Day. So, yes, we have a lot of responsibilities. As a telecommunication company, we, in our nature, are linked closely with the systems of digital networking and communication. So all our main assets, we're working in the telecom market, they actually management through the digital double. So all our maintenance, which is providing this digital network, is carried out on the preventive analysis. So we can see every element of our network through this digital double. Through all the digital operators, they all have this systematic approach into this process management and how to digitalize those processes and how to manage the company through the work with the digital double, through their basic infrastructure, where we are providing our services. So Trans-Telecom, according to the strategy, on the base of it, which was proposed to us and approved by the board of directors, so our goal is to actively participate in the implementation of the digital transformation of our mother company, of Russian Railways. So our approach into the creation of the digital double, answering the question, what is big data, how do we work with that? So this is a very systematic approach, and it is in our company a long run. So we're creating digital vision of different entities which create the nature of the railway in general. So first of all, when we're talking about the passenger, about the consumer of our services, so in the current moment, more than 2 years, our brand, since we have transferred the competence center from the client service, so we are organizing for the one information center for Russian Railways. Within this activity, we are collecting the information about all the links where the passenger or client is communicating with the provider of transport services. So we are well aware of this ecosystem. During these several years, we have collected a lot of data, and the Russian Railways, due to that fact, is able to develop their own profile of the customer, of the client. That is what is done by Google Analytics or Yandex Direct. So we understand the demographic parameters of our client, we understand what he prefers, their preferences, we know where he traveled last year, what he will be doing this year, we can make a forecast. So knowing what he's talking about and when he's requesting about the availability of the tickets. So talking about our clients and profile of our client passenger, what we know today already and what we are creating, we using the information as the telecommunication company, and we have instruments and tools. They are all legal, and those tools enable us to analyze the preferences of our client through the network internet. So we can see his browser touches. So we're using this for our marketing, we're using for our marketologists, so who are responsible for moving forward our products. So we are cooperating actively with the Russian passenger company, Russian Railways. So we're talking about our client one more time. We're collecting the data. We have a lot of data, number of trips, quantity of time which a passenger is spending in Russian Railways, and how he's using our infrastructure. On the basis of all this data, we can see that Russian Railways is one of the biggest owner of the digital information about the digital clone, digital double of our passenger. So digital double of the rolling stock and about our stationary equipment. So here, when we're talking about this, the digital double, the technology is going forward as well. So we can provide the digital platform with information. It was, as it was seen on the previous slide, there were 8 platforms which are the base, the cornerstones, not only for the Russian Railway, but for the whole market of the transportation. So for those digital platforms, we need data. The data has to be very fresh, down from the silicon sources, which means that they are by the highest level, that they should receive this data in the correct time with the correct format, and it has to be approved and corrected. So here we have one of our strategic goals, which was written to us by the board of directors, that we need to provide this data for the digital platforms of Russian railways and for the market and then also. In this case, if you will have a time, please visit our information board. So in our information stand we have few elements: how to control the digital infrastructure, how to fill it with data. So this data is providing information about the rolling stock. Now we're talking about the technical maintenance time and technical issues. This information, it can be in active use, and it can be useful for the whole ecosystem. As it was shown on this third slide of Dmitry Igorovich, it is a very interesting information for everybody. So talking about the ownership of the data, this is a very important question, of course. So here we're talking about the data which was collected by the Russian railways, and this data belongs to the owner, and there is a direct owner. It can be only distributed according to the specifically made agreement with the different market players and service providers who are working on those digital platforms. So furthermore, talking about our professionals, our experts. So in Russian railways we have a lot of employees who are in our company and our also partners, and so they're working in this infrastructure, they're actively participating. Here we have a field, and we need also to make a digital double of the employee for different construction companies of our staff. So here we're talking about different services such as workforce management, when we're understanding who is working in the infrastructure, what kind of orders he has, what kind of access codes he has or restrictions, what are the time frames, time limits. So working with the head engineer from Sergei Alexeyevich Kobzev of the Russian Railways, we are working on this specific coordinate system which will enable us to position the personnel right in the railway infrastructure within 3 centimeters. What does that mean? It means that at any time you understand where exactly the work is going on all data, and so we can see that it's safe and that this work is can be carried out successfully. So talking about this actual data which we are developing, creating and collecting, our colleagues from the holding of Russian Railways, they're helping us, and the main task, as we can see, it is to provide the maximum possibility that the human factor will be excluded, so that the system which is responsible for the decision making will receive the actual true information and relevant. So when we're talking about the data in the volume of it is continuously growing. So we need to understand all the tasks about cybersecurity. It is very important. So talking about the digitalization and about the threats to the digitalization, we do understand that, and this task is also very important. Our mother company is actively involving us in making the digital safety of our product. So in 2 words, that's about all my answers to your questions from our Trans-Telecom company. So just one more time, I would like to say that the collaboration which was created and developed between the transport and logistics sphere, when we have a field and we have the base and all the players are deeply interested, this association of the transport and logistics. So under this company, and we have implemented a pilot project to test our services and to test the services which are available on the market at the moment. We have carried out multimodal transportation from the seaport to the loading station to the warehouse. So this IT infrastructure which was responsible, it exists, it has been tested, it works. So our approaches to the digital sphere and to the logistics showed out a very good and positive result. So it's a very interesting experience, a very interesting pilot project. So the first pilot services which are available and which we can provide to the market have been tested and can be delivered. So they're working. They are actual and practical tools. Thank you, Roman. But we will not let you go that easy. You'll have to answer some questions. So, topic is very interesting. And one question to you is a profile and a behavior pattern of the user of telecom. You have been studying it for many, many years. So this is the basis of your work. So it has started from the beginning of the sector B2C. So now we've just heard that you checking this behavioral pattern of the passenger, of your client. So why do you need for the Russian railways and why do you need for your company? It's understandable, but ethical question. How the passenger, your client, can benefit from it? What's good for him about that? Yes, Yandex and Google have answered this question long ago. So for the client, he'll have a targeted proposal. So it will get at that advertising which he needs. Also, he'll have a better comfort, better services. The more we know about our client, the better package of services we can provide, the more comfortable it will be without some additional, not needed for him information. So all the service providers, they're working to develop comfort for our final user. So that's how he will benefit from it. Now, Roman, I will not let you go that easy. One more question for you, Roman. So there have been a lot of examples in the telecom company when the company with a big database, they have created and developed their own telecom project. So for example, we can talk about the joint venture TNT and Disney. When Disney users, they were receiving for their services from this big TNT brand from the United States as targeted information, AT&T. So for you, you have a million of users, you have big data on all of them. So how we can implement it? What kind of joint project can be done for them, for your clients? It goes without saying that, of course, we do use our opportunity to solve questions which are in front of the Russian railways. So just recently, for example, we had the World Cup on football. Our marketologists, they've been working very hard, and we have created a product and provided to our citizens and to our guests who visited our country, to the fans, connection between the transport links, logistics. So the person was, as it is called, humanly connected. So human connected is the next who is coming from after the human sapiens. So with the railway, you're moving from point A to point B. We have proposed to our clients, to the passengers, during the stops to purchase those modems which will enable them to be constantly linked. We have proposed them different SIM cards so that they can be continuously, permanently linked to the internet. So more than that, our experience and understanding enabled us to carry out together with our colleagues this specific portal which was started up by the Russian railways. On this portal we have provided a very useful and practical information which helped to develop a very good content and functional contact for our clients, for our passengers. Okay, talking about the World Cup. It was a very unique experience for us. Many companies participated actively in the World Cup. Have you checked about this Wi-Fi trafficking in our trains? Were they in great use and great demand or not? We understand that they were all free of charge, wireless in trains, but how deep it was needed. So I can only answer that what I know for sure, that we have provided the monitoring and checked how important that service was, and the real-time mode every day. We had a quality control of the service for our clients and fans, football fans, but I cannot take you the exact figures straight away now from my head. But the organization of the process showed that everybody was happy. So the volume of contact through our database and through our people who were our temporary clients during the World Cup, we can see there were a lot of posts and lots of media was coming from the train when the fan was on the road from one football game to another. So we can see that it was in great demand and lots of people were actively using mobile internet. So, and they were even able to post very big and very heavy footage with movies, and still people were able to make these posts even with video and high resolution photos. So I can say that evaluation is very high. The figures I will be able to answer with the figures later on. So if I'm not mistaken, there were more than 300,000 visitors and site companies which were participating in it, in train portals. So thanks a lot. So after the Roman, he mentioned about the very interesting project. This project was implemented by us together on the base of our association with the IT system of Russian Railways, Transcontainer, Transtelecom company, logistic brands of all those companies participated actively. So it will be very interesting. We'll see the movie now. We have never shown this video before. Let's start and look at it at the moment, and then we will discuss it. So please put it on the screen.
Thousands of kilometers across the country, east to west, north to the east, connecting various regions and countries. The transit through Russia has undisputed advantages because it will be faster and cheaper. No borders with crossing borders, and there are no procedures to go through high technology work places and jobs, which is a transit potential for Russia. This is the capacity of a minimum $15 billion, which can be multiplied many-fold, allowing for automatic transfer of data and cloud storage technologies and online services for multimodal transportation processes. For now, currently, many transportation companies need to go through a lot of paperwork at each stage of transportation, and there is no operational access to the current location of the cargo. And as a result, the time of delivery is growing, and the unified or consolidated in digital environment is a system that will consolidate and unite all of the participants in the transportation process. The government-based digital transportation platform will provide and ensure the digital data exchange and processing, which will be accessible by the government services and by transportation companies. And in the future, it will ensure high technological export. The solution of the government-based digital system will be launched by the pilot project, and it will be possible to monitor the current location of the cargo through the transit, and there will be special navigational devices installed on the cargo, like individual containers. And after the upon the arrival to logistical hub, the documentation will be automatically downloaded to the information database. It is equipped, the system is equipped with LP1 XNB sensors, which monitor temperature, impact, and the unauthorized opening. After that approval from the sensors, it will be reloaded to the other platforms, to the railroad, and the information will be passed on automatically, ensuring automatic monitoring of the movement of the cargo, transferring the same container from the railroad to the automotive transport, passing and transmitting information from the mobile device on board the vehicle, and through while passing under this special Platon digital services, you will also pass information on the location of the cargo. The conditions of delivery will be in line with the requirements. So all the information will be available to all the participants in the transportation process online 24/7. The creation and development of such digital platform will increase the number of participants and the online monitoring for all the participants who will be in possession of mobile devices and able to monitor the current location of the process. Based on this digital platform, there will be an environment created of ensuring the transparency of transport processes, and will ensure the ease of controlling and monitoring of the objects, and will actually decrease the cost of transportation. by digitalization of the processes and by delivering the legislative power to the online processes, it will ensure shorter time of processing and shorter time of documentation, paperwork, control. It will lead to further simplification of processes and procedures, thus giving a new impulse to the development of the transportation system in Russia. It's the case when you again get the proof that the times of the separate or individual IT platforms or systems is over. And this is an example where platforms and technologies are being consolidated along with the data processing into one system. There is nothing supernatural here, which has been shown in this video. It's, of course, a very clear integrated process which was developed and showed great results. That's why I'll give the floor to Pavel Ilyichev. Could you please share with us the digital transformation information and the processes in GEFCO in providing services? And there is a project, one of the breakthroughs of the year, that we would like you to share about. Good afternoon. In fact, the message was absolutely correct about the key elements for the digital transformation in the interest or for the benefit of the user. I will shortly share with you about three projects that we are implementing. It's the service provider project that was launched in 2015 following the initiative of in the Central and Eastern Europe. It's the transfer of administrative processes from higher costs countries like Germany to lower costs countries and areas with the lower labor force market like Bulgaria. And after these years of this project, we re-evaluated the strategic value of such processes, and beginning with 2017, we opened another 2 centers in one of the centers in Sofia and another great center in Lisbon, and we redistributed the load among the centers. And this company with the potential of 75% of the 75% of the market, we redistributed that among these centers, which will allow them to cover even the northern part of Africa. So what's the core meaning of it? The core meaning is to transfer all our relationship and interaction with our counter agents and clients, including thousands and tens of thousands of our clients, to the digital platform in order to speed up the paperwork processing and using digital technologies automatically up to transfer up to 90% of paperwork into digital, and thus minimizing the unnecessary paperwork. And there is and we began transferring other functions to that model, including cash collection and data information from our client and payments information towards our subcontractors working in tender processes, bidding processes. And furthermore, there are other functions related to that, such as HR and operational functions, and our data management systems, which allow us to work with databases. And currently, we see that there is a very substantial increase in the speed of the digitalization. Also, we are witnessing substantial optimization of costs, and we're expecting to upscale this effect thanks to the higher efficiency of the system in overall expenses for implementation of the functions. So the other 2 projects that are worthy of mentioning in the context of the digitalization and building of digital platforms. The first one is Movie Car project. It's the project that we launched a year and a half ago, along with our external subcontractor through a joint venture with an IT company. And we involved minority shareholders in this as well. The first objective is to create a consolidated digital platform for automotive transportation, which is one of the main objectives for us. And secondly, we have a lot of IT applications in IT systems which should be consolidated, must be consolidated in order to provide seamless process for documentation. And plus, the second objective was to enter the mass market of used cars mass market, because in the majority of cases in Europe or in the world, the ratio is 1 to 4, 1 to 3. So for a million new car deals, there is 3 or 4 million per used cars. So this is a very unorganized market, and thanks to the digital platform, we are able to enter the market using our experience. And our experience tells us that the basic idea of owning a car changes. And in the Great Britain, there was a breakthrough last year when the number of cars sold through leasing or rental companies surpassed the cars sold to physical persons. So this trend currently is being tracked very clearly, and we monitor the number of cars that are being sold or rented out through various hubs. It's growing. So for us, the project, this is a project that allows us to enter the next generation of IT platforms and build another level or another environment of interacting with the client. And secondly, it's the digital platform which allow us to also enter to the internet market of end users. The third project that we are implementing currently is the deal of 2019. It's another area that GEFCO is a part of, and one of the major operators in Europe and in the world. It's work with palleted cargo, transportation by automotive or semis or semi-trucks or freight automotive transportation. So this is the process that we call the Uberization of cargo, of freight transportation. In the last couple of years, looking at our competitors, closest competitors, that we drew some conclusions that there were some more or less difficult issues that in order to strike the balance between the traditional model and the new digital model, because none of the existing platforms, they are not profitable yet and not still bringing cash. So having waited out through the hype, we, beginning with June of this year, we purchased a French company, which is an existing company operating in France with about 10,000 client base and about 7,000 operators. So the objective is to integrate that platform and to transfer the services that we supply to our clients, which will allow us to save on the expenses and upscale our services across our chain and network to work in Asia and in Europe. And towards 2020, there will be an application for Europe, and this platform will be also used in Russia. So these are the most interesting projects, or the three most interesting processes that are connected to the digitalization. Thank you, Pavel. It's a very interesting thing that you mentioned. Please tell us, what's your opinion as a professional on the topic of the Uberization threat? Because in my view, it has a lot of expectations toward the Uberization of everything, and huge segments of transportation business have undergone this Uberization for example, the taxi or ride-sharing processes, all of them are actually not bearing any profit. So there is no win-win situation there. Everybody is a loser. Do you think that the same thing might happen to cargo transportation as well? So this overall tendency or trend of Uberization game. So what do you think about this segment? I think we should distinguish here from the mass product like retail and professional use and professional demand, because in the freight transportation, for example, the efficiency in one-time deals, they will be digitalized, and the digital technologies will be used more and more. In that respect, we were considering this trend, digitalization, so this never-ending work for and strive for profit will continue, and we're considering this tool to reduce our costs, expenditures compared to our competitors in order to win more clients. And we're also looking at subcontractors who are looking at the return loads. And on the other hand, one of our key clients is major international global companies who are interested in high quality service. So here, digitalization, such solutions are a way to increase efficiency, improve efficiency, and to use the opportunity for the client to monitor the cargo, its movement digitally. And on the other hand, it will be it will give us an opportunity to optimize our fleet and the client flow. It will allow us to monitor the cargoes at complicated or package-based transportation services to optimize the fleet and our assets. Pavel, and another unexpected question maybe. We should probably mention a phenomenon about another lost expectation. I read about the Center of Consolidated Services. You tried using blockchain technologies to accompany transactions in multimodal transportation. And there was a startup event that you founded. Could you please share a little bit on that, because it's very interesting. I'm not even talking about the blockchain economy, but more about its particular specific application in transportation. It would be of interest. Thank you. We ran an experiment or experiments in that area. We haven't gone to an industrial level just for one simple reason, because technology itself is still expensive. And the opportunity to use blockchains for more complex processes is not open. Many clients that we have talked to are not quite comfortable with the idea. And we ran an experiment with European MFCG companies in terms of using blockchain to increase transparency and security, but it was not reasonable. So we are for using that blockchain technology for simpler technological transportation chains in terms of multimodal transportation with 3 to 4 operators to provide transparency to the client at each and every stage that the application of such technology can be feasible. But first, it needs to become more mass market based and more comfortable in its user interface for operators and the clients. And at that, the reducing of the costs for its use should be considered. Everything good, every good thing is always about money. So when we talk about very expensive technology, it takes time, except for the niche cases. So otherwise, it will be not feasible. Thank you. And I'd like to give the floor to Mikhail Ivanov. Eurosib
Vice
has
Director General of the Eurosib. So the cargo, people trusted you, all the big networks, trade networks of the Russian former CIS countries. So what kind of digital platforms you need? What kind of digital solutions you are implementing for your services? Thank you. Question is very interesting, but I also have a question to you. So talking about this previous presentation, I actually have three questions. Who, when, and why? So who was the developer, when it will be developed, and where it will be implemented. So there was a sample, but how it will be implemented in the future, who will be in charge? So those questions will be very interesting to me. Please answer to me them later. So talking about the Eurosib, we have quite a big fleet and quite a diverse fleet of carriages. We have different platforms, different coated and multimodal transportation means within Russia and on the international market, working together with big factories, with big producers as an export and import transportation. So when we're talking about digitalization, we have started this work quite recently, and I can tell that mainly here we're talking about the information systems. So correspondingly, now we had a first initiative. This initiative started from the trade union, through the operator union. It was the trade of spare parts, so that in this or that region we will have or will have and find a spare part if it is absent through different partners. So this history started 3-4 years ago. During the year 2018-2019, we moved forward. This joint project together with Russian Railways is active. We continue to work within it, and we hope that by the end of this year and beginning next year we'll have a high quality product. With this product we will be able to implement fruitfully. We can exchange spare parts which are in deficit. So this logistics of spare parts is very important, and financially it is a highly costly issue. So talking about the information development and digitalization, we're moving forward. We have several different approaches. We are making analysis of those existing network of trains and transportation of containers through our railway network with these open wagons, how fast they going, semi-open wagons, what is the graphic of transportation by the Russian railway, semi-open carriages, and so on. So using all this information, working together with the operators and within the Russian railways, we're trying to find the optimum solutions, optimum services. And then we're using those services in our technological protocols, and we're proposing them to our clients. We're also working in the modeling of a cargo transportation of the stage-by-stage routes. So we're in a different mapping, different directions. So these roadmaps and this digital double of our terminal in Novosibirsk, the work is going on. This work is going on continuously. We're trying to develop it in several directions. From Moscow we're moving over to Novosibirsk, and then from Novosibirsk to Far East and to China through Mongolia. So we are also trying to work with this empty stock, trying to make an optimum logistics, how to export from Russia abroad. So talking about the spare part exchange, I have just mentioned to you earlier, we're also trying to make a sample of the network which will enable us to forecast when we need to do the maintenance and current maintenance. We know that it is quite expensive and this cost is high. So you cannot do the forecast of maintenance just by hands. You need to have a highly efficient digital system which can react very fast and adequate. and where we can see what is happening to the rolling stock. Rolling stock of third parties. When we're using our service contracts, and it is understandable that through planning, through knowing the information about all the rolling stock of different parties, we will be able to make the work more adequate. Cooperation with different initiatives, with different operators, making a good planning, weekly planning, decade planning. So it was mentioned earlier that it is important and we have to use, and soon we will have a vision as a one unified system, which will be one system for all players. But today the situation is quite different. We all know that Transtelecom is developing their own system, Russian Railway their own system, GEFCO their own system, and Eurosib their own system. So every company is developing their own. In every company like Transcontainer and FESCA, they have their own digital model. So at the moment they are not unified. But we need to have one digital field. But I think that this global approach is very important. So who, when, it will happen in the year 2020, 2030. So when do we need that? It's a long-term perspective. So every brand is working on developing their own system and trying to play in this market. So we're all trying to fight for the client. But what will be the solution? How we can unify them? It is a big question. Thanks a lot. Yeah, when, how, we will talk about this later. So this project is actually already, we're working on that. Transtelecom and Transcontainer are actively working in development of that. So we're trying to unify the system and making it unified for all of us. It is a very important, interesting topic. Let's do this discussion further on later. Mikhail, one more question to you. I read about that in Trans-Russia, it was a talk about the development of the transportation in Primoria region through the border crossing, and it was not more 400 pairs of trains per 24 hours. But this is also a technical issue, an administrative issue. Through the information or digital transformation, can we solve this issue? We all know that the region Primoria is the key issue when we're talking about the trade with the Far East. So can we change this bottleneck? Can it be expanded? What can be done with that, about these 400 pairs of trains? So in Primoria region, we came to conclusion, and because the services from the year 2015 between Russia and China were developed through Mongolia, through the Ulaanbaatar Railway. So because of very unstable work of this railway network in the last year and this year, Evgeny Igorovich, we would like to stress the issue that it is a daughter brand of the Russian Railway. It's a subsidiary company. So the share of the Russian Railway is quite high. So digitalization of this sister company, it has to happen, because at the moment it's just zero. So they cannot work with the rolling stock through digital means. So logically we came out with a decision to come through the alternative border crossing points, to use Gradekov, and at the moment the carrying capacity, it exists. There are some possibilities. So with sending this semi full rolling stock through these subsidiary branches, but it's all not stable. The border crossing point is blocked, and the containers, they can wait there and they can be there on hold. So that's all because of absence of digitalization. So we need to first start with informatization, because those border crossing points, they are very weakly equipped. They do not have information systems. So the customs, the border control units, they don't have the information systems. So in this border crossing point, which is moving only 12, 13 pairs per 24 hours, they don't have an opportunity. In Grodekovo, for example, the first train has passed, but it waited for 7 days. 7 days containers were waiting to get through the border crossing. So this technology of 3.40, 3.21, but second train, it took 5 days. So now the technology is enabling us to do it in 24 hours. But how do we do that? Through the administrative leverage, through the hard work of physical people. So digitalization and informatization is absent. So talking about the different place of border crossing Naushki between Mongolia and Russia, same situation. The equipment is very old, no mechanism, no equipment, and the customs and border control units, they are not able to work with expert fast enough. So the containers, they can be there stuck for a month because customs, they've done the work, then they can see that something is missing or not adequate, then the container is just waiting there, and it has to need a further checking and further work, but it's not done. So it is stuck there for months. So Mikhail, and in general, what is the idling time? Idling time due to the customs or to the border control units? What is the idling time average in Naushki? In Naushki, according to the technology, it can be only 7-8 hours. In Grodekovo, 24 hours idling. This is the technology of reloading. So after the train has arrived and after it has moved over to the next rails and moving forward. So when we're talking about this improvement and papers and providing the ready train in Grodekovo, 24 hours. So it's not too bad. I would say that it is quite bad. In Altenkol, the situation, in Khargos, situation is the same. So between Kazakhstan and Russia, there it's only 4 hours, but here it's 24 hours. Okay, thanks a lot. I'd like to give the floor to Artyom Voitko, Director of the Strategic Development of the Group Freight Village. So this company is working actively with the implementation of development of the logistics centers, which is called Freight Village. As far as I know, there are 2 of them, yes, in Rosva and Ortsino. Artyom, please tell us about this Freight Village project. How does it work and what is it about? So, yeah, those are unique projects because we have a unique market. So I'm checking and looking and seeing what my colleagues are talking about. So I'd like to tell that in this connection, the classic was told 100 years ago that control is very important, and it is a cornerstone of the container transportation. So dear colleagues, they were telling that, yeah, indeed, it is a very actual situation even now. So we're trying to do our best. We're not just idle. So the containers are a very complicated and delicate issue. So when it is in our infrastructure, we have this class fight, class struggle. So we can tell that the efficiency is the fight and struggle for our clients, for our cargo, and it affects directly the financial result. So what do we have at the end? So the market is growing very fast. So container ship transportation market doubled. So as it was mentioned earlier, double-digit growth. So it is very profitable. It's very optimistic and interesting market. To get share in it is important. So people trying to invest in it, trying to get their share in that. We have, as it was mentioned earlier, 2 in Orsina and about 150,000 units we're transporting, and besides, it's 1,500 fitting platforms 5,000 fitting platforms, which are also working actively. But what will be the situation in the future? Will have this celebration forever? No. Our market is getting ripe. Our market is developing. It's becoming more and more mature. So it has the features of a more civilized platform. So we can see how it is done in foreign countries abroad. So they're developing with their capacity, with their seafaring craft. So every box is bringing them only several dollars margin, and sometimes it's even a deficit, no margin at all. So negative income. So the main request of the business from our colleagues is important. So we're trying to understand at the moment how to get into the system which is being developed and which will be mature in next several years. We'll have those so-called black swans. So the question is interesting. How to solve it, we don't know yet. How to work with those terminals which only carry capacity is significant but is not being developed. So what kind of IT system can work with that? IT system cannot provide you a guaranteed load and guaranteed margin, which will enable you to cover the capital investment. So our market is fresh. So operational infrastructure requires a lot of capital investments to get some income. So this pushes us to the decisions and to develop our own digital platform, which is the 5th platform, yeah? And if we can see that in the market there are a huge number of those digital platforms are being developed. So nothing bad about it. Let's say that there will be different 100 approaches, but we will see who will be the winner, how we can combine them. So in any case, we're trying to develop this rational system, which in the future will become, with us or with our competitors, a base where we can build up our big building of our success, this construction of success. So why do we have these 100 different approaches? Because nobody is trusting. We owning everything, for example, we're managing huge assets, they are all profitable, they depending on our cargo load, and maybe a nightmare for every operational manager and director is when you're coming over to the alternative IT platform and then you wake up in the morning and then you can see that you have lost all your cargo customers, all the cargo, because then your digitalization in this company will end, because he will not have his suppliers and he will suffer and he will regret deeply. So let's think what is the first. So we should not criticize this approach, but we should understand that demand exists and the time will show how to answer this demand. We have decided to invest in this kind of scheme. We will see if we are right or not in the future. At the moment, we are not disappointed because we are solving our big problem with loading, with finding cargo. So we hope that it is a good approach and that we will succeed and we will benefit in the future. Artyom, thanks a lot. So I have this not very positive opinion or view on this problem. So tell me, please, Artyom, so how we can guarantee our profit or margin in the operator business? Maybe it's just a joke, maybe it doesn't exist, it's a fairy tale. This digitalization, transformation into digital world, maybe we're just trying to cut the cost, but maybe it kills the business as it is.
It's a good question. 2 years ago, the cost of lift fitting platform was less than 3 million rubles. Nowadays, it's about 4 million rubles. Its cost has risen during a very short period of time, and the capex into the fitting platform should be justified, and it should be should be under 8 years in the short-term prospect. Otherwise, we will not be able to cover the market that we are counting on. when we talk about the transit, transportation increase. So good logistics cannot be cheap. And this is a statement that cannot be argued with. When I talk about the necessity for a guaranteed profitability or profit margin, mentioned that the situation when the company bearing the cross should be confident and be comfortable about investing and providing services to its end users at the level that they deserve. And in this connection, there are norms that arise and that the market is aiming at. Artyom, it's very interesting. We will not be arguing because we're integrated in the global transportation environment, into the logistical environment. We do not exist by ourselves, and we're parts of a consolidated mechanism. Tell us, what is the effect of a loss of transit potential? How much has the country lost in transit since sanctioning began? How did it influence the business? I'd like to mention the following. In this respect, the transit for our country and the potential for the country, it's huge. And when we talk about the railroad infrastructure that we have, it is limited by the throughput capacity of the trunk railroads that we have. Our Chinese and European partners are very much interested in the reducing of delivery times and the seamless technologies and the transparency of the services. And in my opinion, sanctions in this situation didn't have too much of an impact. I don't exclude the sanctions becoming an obstacle of developing alternative transport routes like the North Transit route. And this is the first thing that we have in view. So whenever we need Western technologies, and it is related to sea-going transportation, maritime ways, international routes. So this is the area where we operate. So this is the one of the examples where we need to follow the example of our Western and just foreign partners. So talking about the Northeast Passage, we're right now at the verge of a very interesting task. So things can be done very well at the very early on in the process, and this Northeast Passage is a great alternative to the Suez Canal Passage, to the other ways. You mentioned this tree of our common success. Is there a practical application of usage of digital platforms and technologies to make the Northeast Passage the main one? Is there a technological possibility of that? There is a technological possibility, of course. Another question is do we have the right resources to purchase those technologies, and will our partners be able to sell those technologies to us? I would not like to turn this discussion into this routes concession and what are the threats to it, but the navigational issues and the monitoring issues and safety and security issues of using this artery are still pending, and they are within the discussion agenda. These are the connection points where the application of digital technologies is vital. This is a fact. Thank you very much. It's very interesting, and in the process of our very short discussion, there have been very practical things mentioned, very practical phrases said, and every one of them is very important. Everybody has said it, that investments into digital technologies will pay off. And for that, it takes courage and to begin the work. And the examples that and specific cases that you mentioned are the examples of risk and of interesting project and investment approaches. Another thing which everybody noted is the informatization is not only about digitalization. Sometimes these terms are being incorrectly interchanged. Evgeny, I'd like to probably draw a conclusion to our discussion. Oftentimes, usually the moderator is responsible for that. Is it okay to relay and transfer the responsibility? Why is it RZD that actually are the last ones to respond and to react? Well, the conclusion, dear colleagues, is about the fact that, in my opinion, I stand by the statement that we will pay off our investments if we take the approach of getting out of the zone of comfort. On the one hand, it's very complicated, but on the other hand, we'll be doing this together. As Mikhail has said, what RZD and Rostelecom are doing, a project was shown. The same technology was demonstrated. There are a lot of players in the same market, and we will probably not have a consolidated system for everybody, but there will be standards necessary, and thus we will create something of value for everyone, so that we could do this work together. And in that case, we will be certainly profiting from that system, all of us. And as a moderator, I will draw the conclusion and the project that was demonstrated, and I'd like to join our platform of for this discussion of this project at our association's platform, and including the participation of RZD and Rostelecom. Thank you all for the participation in this discussion. I'd like to give a round of applause to our panelists. It was very, very brave. Thank you.